Time now for another edition of Wellness Wednesday with Dr. Bradley Meyer at the Okoboji Wellness Clinic. Good morning, Dr. Meyer.
Good morning, Dave. Good to be with everybody.
Well, I'll tell you what, no matter what's in the news, this Make America Healthy Again movement seems to carve out its own headlines, that's for sure. Been in the news again the past week. And we're going to keep plugging away here because you and other doctors like yourself around the country have figured out that some old school medicine, if you go back and look at some of this stuff that got pushed aside maybe through the years, some of it worked pretty well.
Absolutely. So, it goes back to even the 1920s when it comes to how we measure our thyroid. And most of us know that thyroid gland, which sits in the neck, is a pretty important gland that is there to regulate your metabolism. So it's kind of the master metabolism gland. And many times folks think if I'm overweight, I've got dry skin, I'm tired, I've got brain fog, they're like, I know it's my thyroid gland. I just know it. And many times they'll go to the doctor's office and get that blood test, and it's within the normal range, the quote-unquote normal range. And so pretty interesting story on the whole thyroid thing, because, again, what we're trying to do with everybody that walks through the door is, well, number one, we want you to feel better. Number two, we want to identify what it is that is inflaming you. What is the virus, the bacteria, the toxin, whatever that means, gluten, in many cases could be a heavy metal, mold, and on we go. So how well our body is able to deal with those toxins really comes down to metabolism in many ways, and that is how well you make energy. And so where we oftentimes get tripped up over time with Western medicine, and as I've practiced over the years, is we look at one biologic system. So it's a chain of all systems, including the thyroid. And so last week we talked a little bit about the adrenal glands and the master anti-stress hormone, hydrocortisone, that most of us are really, really in need of more of that. Well, many times the thyroid, when the adrenals are low, the thyroid is low as well, and vice versa. And so what can happen is your metabolism just doesn't work as well when that thyroid is not working very well. So that means, in layman's terms, all these different disease processes can start popping on board. So we can be at greater risk for autoimmune diseases, allergies, cancers, all the things, pain, inflammation, all these things start to pop on in when that whole chain isn't working well. But again, we want to identify the tools that we use to measure it are the best tools. And in the 1920s, they actually had a pretty complex metabolic mechanism or testing system to measure thyroid. So sometimes we'll measure thyroid by your temperature. Now, most of the time today, it's blood work. But back in the 20s, it was this test, and as it turns out, this test was pretty accurate, but it was time-consuming. And so they were looking for another way to go ahead and measure thyroid in a way that was not quite as time-consuming. But the interesting factor, they never correlated how effective that lab test to measure thyroid was with the actual metabolic test. What I found, and I've come to learn over the last few years, is that thyroid test, the blood test that we often get, can really miss the mark in a lot of cases. So a lot of folks that come in saying, I've got all the symptoms of hypothyroid, brain fog, low energy, I just can't seem to lose weight, and I just feel off. I know it's my thyroid. Your intuition is many times correct. But the cool thing is now we've got machines and mechanisms and modalities that can measure this metabolism. It's called resting metabolism, and it's a device that we have here that measures it. It's called the PNOE, and this test, you come in fasting for about 4 hours prior. We've talked about it before, but you sit in the chair, and it's measuring your oxygen in and your CO2 out. So it's almost like wearing a scuba mask, a little bit like that, over your mouth region, and breathe in, breathe out, and that's going to give us a score. And if that's, we like that score to be up around above 90 at least. And so if somebody comes in and their thyroid levels, and I'm doing this on almost everybody that walks in the door now, is if your thyroid levels are normal and your metabolic score is low, that tells me that I need to work on increasing the dosage of your thyroid treatment. So there are all kinds of things. There's ways to treat thyroid. Iodine, is a big one. Supplements. A lot of us are B deficient, zinc deficient, selenium deficient, minerals, vitamin deficient, and or the thyroid may develop an autoimmune disease over time where your body actually attacks the thyroid. That's called Hashimoto's. Gluten, sometimes dairy, can also correlate. If you've got allergies to those, then that can also attack your thyroid gland. So we got to identify again what's attacking it and what's making it not work so well, and then how do we optimally support it. And so that's the exciting thing, because it can be one of those things where, like all things, when folks come in here, we're looking with a little bit different lens. And, a lot of times we know we're not feeling as good as we could feel, but we'll go to the doctor and the labs will be quote unquote normal, but we want to take that deeper look. We want to look deeper within that lab, see what kind of, little trends there may be. Now, again, as we said in the thyroid lab, it's not quite as helpful, but it still can be. So there's one really cool way to measure and check into the thyroid is you do the free T3 over the reverse T3, and that's going to tell us, okay, yeah, we really do have a thyroid problem. So that is one good way to check through the labs. But interesting thing, Dave, how much of our body's energy goes to create heat? 60%. So you always hear about, you remember Grandma and Grandpa, when they used to get older, they used to always have the heat up really, really high in their home. And they always seemed to be cold. Well, that's because their metabolism, they were not doing as good of a job at making heat. And that metabolism, again, 50 to 60% of it goes towards the thyroid metabolism and making that heat. So you can pretty much tell folks anymore that they come in and they're over 40 with pretty great certainty. I can tell you your thyroid is suboptimal. And then it's like, well, do we want to do anything about it? And if we do, this is a pretty interesting thing that Dr. Schallenberger shared with me, was the fact that many times we get too focused in on one organ system or one diagnosis. Mm-hmm. When it's a chain of all connectedness. And so that is it. So somebody comes in and says, we've identified the thyroid. Well, many times we got to look at the liver as well. Many times we got to look at the adrenals. We got to look at all the different parts, all the different chains, links in the chain of the fence. And when you address them more simultaneously, we look at your hormones, for instance, as well, like your male-female hormones. A lot of times when you go see a specialist, for instance, they just look at the heart. We want to put all of it together, the metabolism, the hormones, what are the toxins, and once we put this all together and kind of address things in a joined fashion all at once, And then you throw in some treatments that stimulate metabolism, again, hyperbarics, ozone therapy, for instance. That's where you see these major jumps in people's condition because, again, we talk about it over and over again. We're charging up that battery when we're amping up that metabolism. So the story about thyroid. So remember, if you're over 40, you're feeling sluggish, you've got afternoon fatigue, you're dependent on that caffeine, that extra cup of coffee in the afternoon to keep you going, it's a pretty good bet that you've got some adrenal insufficiency and you've got some thyroid insufficiency. So when you come in to see us at the Okoboji Wellness Clinic, yes, we're going to do a broad set of labs on you, but we're also going to recommend this metabolic test because together that's going to give us a greater picture of what's going on, and then we can be more proactive in getting that body back into balance where it wants to be.
And we've talked about this many times since we've begun. It's not just, of course, if somebody's not feeling well, certainly your number one job is to get them feeling better. But ultimately, you talk about peeling back the layers of the onion. Ultimately, the goal is not just the one-time Band-Aid approach. You want people to be able to live the day, not just survive the day. You want them to get the most out of their days.
Absolutely. And, and sometimes, again, we look at those medications, those prescription medications, if we're on, say more than two, that's something we'll take a look at. And because, although I love, pharmaceuticals are great in a pinch when you need them, and they're great as a bridge in many cases. But, it is nice if we can limit them or not be on them, because those two have potential for side effects. And so when you think about all the different things that could be affecting somebody, I just had somebody in recently that they just started on a new medication, and all of a sudden, and this was from an outside clinic, and ever since then, horrible fatigue. They felt like, so they're obviously having, body's not reacting well to that particular pharmaceutical. So first things first is identify, okay, what is that body reacting to that is, putting you in a position of not feeling well? And then maybe we can find a more of a natural alternative in some cases. In some cases, that's a supplement or herb, or it might be some type of lifestyle change. But yes, we want you to feel your best every day, and the team here, again, it's an impassioned team. Every week we get folks coming in from across the upper Midwest, and we are here with that mission. It's to thrive, not just survive. Know that there is more that you can achieve, that you too can feel less inflamed, you can have more energy, and it's just about starting. And if you're ready to start, that's the toughest thing. When I started kettlebells last November over at Athletic Republic, and I was like, oh man, well, I'm still doing it, and just for a update, but that was the starting part. So it's the same thing with your health. It's when are you ready to start? Say, oh, I've just been feeling bad long enough, and I know what I'm doing isn't working right now for me. I'm spinning my wheels, so I want to try something that's it's a more of a unique approach. It's not so unique anymore, as you said, Dave, this integrative approach where we're combining the best of Western medicine and all types of medicine to help the body do what it wants to do to heal. That it is catching on here pretty fast in this country, and we need more and more folks like us out there that are willing to serve all the folks that are looking for this approach, because what we see every day here is a lot of incredible results, folks that are getting their lives back, and it's a blessing to be a part of it.
Yeah, it's really cool to see where this is headed, and someday we'll have to set some time aside where we can maybe have a real lengthy program and look back at the last 5 years to see how this road has really unveiled itself to not only you and your team in Northwest Iowa, Southwest Minnesota, like you say, the upper Midwest, but honestly, right now it's sweeping the country because people figured stuff out in the last 5 years, and they decided, especially as doctors, if they wanted to practice what they went to school for. And a lot of those people are standing up and saying, man, this is not why I went to medical school. I went to medical school to help people. And so they're doing some different stuff.
More tools in the tool belt, and we get more and more tools every day across this great country and the world. There is a lot out there, and it's why not? It's just this whole idea that you can't get better and you can't reach these states that were said were these diseases that were the end all be all, and this went into the practitioners' minds as well. So much like, well, you got this X disease now, and just going to do this and just kind of manage that instead of saying, all right, let's expect a little bit more. Let's dive into the lifestyle, what we're doing, some of the physiology of what's happening inside of you, because we have more time to do that on a visit. And let's start on that journey to help that body set correction with the course it's taking, detoxify and re-energize. So It is possible. Some things that I thought weren't possible 3 to 4 years ago with regard to the healing path, every day it's a blessing and it's revealing. And that's what it is like for all these docs across the country, these integrative docs, functional docs. It is so gratifying. We're so grateful to have started down this path. And, there have been those that have gone before us, like a Dr. Brownstein, a Dr. Schallenberger. These guys have been doing it for years. And now you've got the new guard coming on, and the silver lining of COVID, that brought a lot of the new guard on to pass the baton on and take it to greater heights.
One thing I have noticed about a great many of these practitioners is there's not many that don't, number two things, inflammation and food. That seems to be part of the equation for nearly all of these folks. Inflammation and food.
And the third one, metabolism. And that's the big one. I know that Casey Means, that came in. There's a lot of books out on metabolism now that's hot, and that's one of the things that Dr. Schallenberger has been driving home for 30 years now is metabolism. So, yes, those three things, absolutely huge. And how much time did we spend in medical school on nutrition? Maybe 2 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. How can folks come see you?
Yeah, give us a call, 712-339-6024. We are at 3305 Berquist Avenue in Spirit Lake. We do the complimentary 15-minute discovery calls to see if we're a good fit for you, and we're happy to kind of walk through on that discovery call a little bit of what we're about and maybe a little bit about how that journey might look with regard to moving forward, because, I, again, had, sometimes folks will come in and they'll say, what are you going to do to make me better? And I always have to reframe that. I'm like, together, we're going to do this together, because kind of the old way was always, doc, fix me. Mm-hmm. Our job is to give you the support, the information, and the tools, and to walk alongside you. But ultimately, the big fixing is, the big steps are you, and we're there to help you in that process. But that's the mindset we talk about on that discovery call, and we are excited to work with you and get you feeling better, living your best.
Awesome, Dr. Meyer. Always a pleasure. Have a great day. We'll talk to you next week.
See you next week, everybody. Bye.
Thank you, Doctor. Dr. Bradley Meyer from the Okoboji Wellness Clinic. And again, you can find out more online at okobojiwellnessclinic.com. They're located at 3305 Berquist Avenue in Spirit Lake.